are back in public session. Thank you for bearing with us as we got settled. I think we're gonna dive right into announcements. Is that correct? We need to flag salute or? Amy, do you have
I have an
an
announcement.
announced? But we didn't do the flag
We
salute.
did not do the flag salute.
So let's start with the flag
We did the
salute.
roll call, but we
Michael,
didn't do
will
the
you
flag
lead us in
salute.
a flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Amy?
Sure. I have an intermediate school announcement. It says, parents whose children are currently in middle school or will be entering middle school in the near future are encouraged to view a newly created educational video entitled, "What Middle School Students Need Most from Their Parents." It is posted as a parent resource under the Parents tab on the district website, westfieldnjk12.org. It can also be seen on WHS TV 36 on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. It's based on a presentation by Westfield school counselors Kim Schumacher, Christine Trottier, and Christina Caprara at Roosevelt Intermediate School. It was originally part of a parent workshop called Coffee with the Counselors. The workshop was taped so that parents who could not attend the workshop also could benefit from the excellent explanations provided and the strategies recommended by the counselors. One parent explained, "Their hands-on practical advice already made a difference in my parenting. These are great tips for parents to remember on a day-to-day basis, and we appreciate their advice."
Thank you. Rob?
Thank you. Mary Tarashuk, who has been a fourth grade teacher at Wilson School for 19 years, has been chosen as one of 2 Educators' Choice Content Award winners in the country. This award was given to Mary for her original blog entry, Teaching by Doing Something Meaningful. Ms. Tarashuk was selected from among 20 nominees by SmartBrief, a digital media company based in Washington, D.C., which will honor her at an Emerging Leaders reception at the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development's annual conference in Anaheim, California in March. Sorry. That's mine.
Chris?
Yes, 2 announcements. First relates to Westfield High School, the performing arts. We are pleased to announce that 5 of our Westfield High School students have been accepted into the 2017 New Jersey All-State Band. They include seniors Dale Byert on trumpet, Michael Haig on E-flat clarinet, and Matthew Schiff on bass clarinet, and sophomore Austin Chen on trumpet, and freshman Brooke Walden on piccolo. This is the largest number of Westfield High School students accepted into the All-State Band in at least 6 years. And Westfield High School has one of the largest representations of students. These 5 students will perform with the All-State Band on February 25th at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center at 3 p.m. Congratulations to those students. One more announcement. Don't miss a night of love songs this Saturday, February 11th at 7 p.m. at the high school. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. The evening will include solo, duet, and full choir performances by the Choraliers, concert choir, and Bella Cora, as well as desserts and coffee.
Thank you. Michael, do you have an announcement?
Yes. Congratulations to Westfield High School violinists Morgan Eng and Kevin Lee, who were accepted into Central Jersey Music Education Association's Region 2 Orchestra. We wish these sophomores the best of luck in their all-state auditions, which will be held in March.
Thank you. Charles?
Okay. Congratulations to 11 students who have signed national letters of intent this spring. The high school students, their sport, and the college they will attend are as follows, and I'll do the best I can on names. Owen Kessler, Division I football, Georgetown University. Liz Bruscia, Division I girls soccer, University of Georgia. Now Division III, Shannon Devitt, basketball, the College of New Jersey. Lucas Karanopoulos, boys soccer, MIT. Lee Scarano, volleyball, University of Scranton. Noah Wright, boys tennis, Williams College. Devin Heiserling, girls track, Gettysburg College. Christina Siri, field hockey, Franklin and Marshall College. Samantha Alfano, girls lacrosse, Gettysburg College. Lila Hutchins, girls lacrosse, Bates College. And Aditya Singh, boys cross country, Stevenson University. Congratulations to all the students.
Thanks.
Good job.
Brendan?
Congratulations to these Westfield High School students who will perform on Saturday, February 25th at 3 p.m. at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in Newark as part of the 2017 All-State Treble Chorus. senior Emma Stern, junior Olivia Michelini, and sophomore Nicole Player.
Okay, this is from athletics. The Union County Baseball Association will honor Westfield High School's Chris Rinaldi, class of 2016, as the most outstanding high school baseball player on February 12th at the association's award ceremony. As the senior captain of last year's varsity baseball team, Rinaldi hit a .357 batting average and helped the Blue Devils to a school record 18 straight wins. Rinaldi has said, "The thing I love most about baseball is that you can't do it by yourself, and that in order to be successful, you really have to play as one collective unit." He begins his college career this year with Division I Holy Cross and says he'll miss his time playing for Westfield High School. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mark. Peggy.
Okay, I have everybody's favorite announcement. Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Friday, February 17th for staff in service, and on Monday, February 20th to observe President's Day. Enjoy.
Our next Board of Education meeting will be on Tuesday, February 28th at 7:30 p.m., and the complete agenda will be available on our website on Friday, February 24th. Any announcements?
I do not.
I'd like to, at this point, recognize the public for agenda items only. I'll ask that if you're here to speak to the Westfield Soccer Association proposal regarding temporary lights at Kaler, that if you wouldn't mind holding those comments until we get to that portion of the agenda. Is there anyone else who has comments on agenda items? Seeing no one come forward, I'd ask the board to approve the minutes of our meeting held on January 24th, 2017, and the private minutes of the same date. Can I have a second, please? Amy, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I want to abstain.
Charles abstains. Moving on to personnel. Mark.
I'd like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 18.
It's actually 19, which is coming around now.
Just coming around, Mark.
Hot off the presses. Okay, so I'll try that again. I'd like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 19. Number 19 is on the addendum that's coming around right now. Can I have a second?
Second.
Robert, thank you. Dr. Dolan?
Yes, actually, I want to highlight 2 retirements and then also my recommendation for an appointment. First, the retirements. Tonight, I'm announcing with regret the retirements of Maria Santilli and Ann Cohen, 2 teachers who have served Westfield students for a combined total of 48 years.
Wow.
For the last 23 years, Maria Santilli has been an Italian teacher in the high school's World Languages department. The Italian program is robust because Maria has developed it by expanding it to 4 years of possible study, including at the honors level. Last year, Maria and her colleague Lauren Durante were proud that 9 of their students earned the Seal of Biliteracy, which was the largest number of students from any school in New Jersey who proved that they were literate in both Italian and English. Maria has given generously of her time to support independent study for students unable to fit Italian into their schedules, and to her colleagues by sharing her knowledge of technology with them. For more than 25 years, Ann Cohen has taught art at Roosevelt, where she has planned and implemented creative lessons centered on a studio approach for her students. Students increase their interest in art and their skills and talents due to Ann's knowledge, but also due to her warmth and support. She has encouraged and facilitated students' talents by being a Teddy Roosevelt Scholar Mentor on numerous occasions, and is a valued member of the Roosevelt community who will be missed. Both Maria and Ann are looking forward to spending more time with their families, particularly in their roles as proud grandmothers, and we wish them well in their retirement. And my next announcement is a recommendation to the board, and I'm very pleased to recommend Dr. Derek Nelson as the principal of Westfield High School. A search was conducted attracting experienced administrators from in and outside New Jersey. The search committee was composed of the president of the Board of Education, PTO co-president, president of the Westfield Education Association, a supervisor, assistant superintendent, the head of human resources, and myself. This committee unanimously recommended, after interviews with Dr. Nelson and several of his staff members, unanimously recommended that he be appointed as the principal. Dr. Nelson has been serving as the acting principal of Westfield High School since August 2016 and held the position of assistant principal at the school since July 2012. He began his administrative role in the Westfield Public Schools as assistant principal of Roosevelt Intermediate School in 2010. Dr. Nelson has established himself as a well-respected and effective administrator, and I am pleased to recommend him for the position of principal to the board.
Any questions or comments on our personnel items? Danny, can I have a roll call, please?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Robert Garrison.
Yes.
Chris Langhardt.
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes, indeed.
So congratulations, Dr. Nelson. I want to invite you to the podium to say a few words, but if I could just take a minute. I just want, as the board representative on the search committee and the parent of 3 high school students with more to come, I just want to tell you how proud and excited I am to be a part of the decision to have you lead our high school. At the conclusion of one of your interviews, you talked about how you were invested in Westfield and our high school. Time and time again, we heard from your fellow administrators, teachers, and students about how you listen, you are collaborative, and you are strong. You have earned the respect of everyone, and in my view, you are the perfect person to continue to move our school forward after this difficult period. So I look forward to working with you, and I'm thrilled that my children will have the chance to continue to grow under your leadership. And if you'd like to come say a few words, we'd welcome it.
Thank you, Dr. Dolan, the Board of Education, for granting me the opportunity to become the 6th principal in the illustrious history of Westfield High School. The other day, I was talking with a friend who was an administrator from another state, and they were complaining about the issues they were having in their school with students and staff and how they don't feel supported from central office. I'm always the good friend, so I listen and I become a sympathetic ear. But the truth is, working at Westfield High School, I can't relate to that. Every day, I watch administrators, teachers, students, and staff give 100% to whatever responsibility they have. Administrators who work tirelessly to provide support and resources for teachers, students, and their families. Teachers and paraprofessionals who continuously try new and innovative ways to improve their practices to help kids learn. Counselors who at times are motivators, tutors, mediators, and they do the college stuff too. Custodians who go the extra mile to make sure the building is clean and presentable. Secretaries who daily juggle parent concerns, various duties, and the phone that never stops ringing. I couldn't be more proud to work with such an amazing staff. Now, going through this process, I couldn't help but think back to how I actually ended up at the high school. So, it's April 2012. I'm working at Roosevelt. I'm happy as a clam, right? I get a call one day. Mr. Nelson, Dr. Dolan would like to see you. I said, okay. So I come over to the board office. And if you've ever been in that situation with Dr. Dolan, you know that she always has her pad, she has a pen. She's always the most active listener ever. So she sits me down and she says, now, Derek, our assistant principals at the high school, they've all gotten some great opportunities. They're all going to different places and such like that. But we were thinking about having some experienced administrators there at the high school. What are your thoughts about going to Westfield High? Now, mind you, at the time, right, like I said, I was working at Roosevelt, I was working with Stu Carey. We had plans, we had plans. And at the time also, I was the coordinator for Title I, Bishop and Achieve. I worked with Anita O'Neill, and I wish she was here to see this right now, But I had plans. I remember I told Dr. Dolan that I have a plan for this program. I had just gotten iPads with Anita, and I'm going to the high school and everything. So she was writing down stuff, and she's an active listener. So she looks at you, she writes, And so I know that she addressed every single one of my concerns within 24 hours. But at that moment, what I was feeling, that she was writing tomatoes, tell Rich to pick up the dry cleaning, because Derek Nelson, you're going to the high school. Never in my wildest dreams could I have predicted that the outcome of that meeting would provide some of the most rewarding experiences of my educational career. So in closing, I'd like to thank my family, my parents, Juanita and Willie Nelson, Mr. and Mrs. Breaker, Sharonda's parents, and of course, Sharonda and Morgan. It is because of your support I am able to do my job at Westfield High School, and I love and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Again, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
So a little birdie told me that perhaps there might be other people who, in the audience, part of a search committee that might like to say a word as well. So feel free, Gail, to come on up. Anyone else?
I don't have to come up. You won't hear me.
No, you do.
Yeah, I know you do. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I'm missing the earring. Don't take notice. I have to tell all of you, this is the first time in my 63 years I had to keep a secret. It was the biggest secret that I had to keep. When says, Gail, who is it? I goes, we'll have a principal Wednesday. We'll have a principal Wednesday. And when I leave here, they will know. I have to tell you, I've been at Westfield High School 17 years. And Onita O'Neill always said, Gail, this is a place for you. I always thought I'd be in a school where I could give back. My mother always said that you need to give back. And Derek has made a difference in me staying here because I know that we are at peace at the high school. The students are at peace, the teachers are at peace, and we're going to go in a really good direction. And I am so glad that I was on the committee because I always thought Gretchen was going to be in tears when Derek talked about his mom and dad. It was an experience that I can tell you that we did a good job. I believe that we did a good job searching, and we had good candidates, but Derek topped them all. So Dr. Nelson, I wish you the best, and we're here to support you. And you can tell me to stop, shut up, too. Thank you. You're welcome.
I don't think so.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming. Congratulations. And thank you, Morgan.
Yeah, bye, Morgan. I need to get my hair like that. She's adorable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you
Bye now.
very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Mark, anything else under personnel?
No, I think that would hold us for tonight.
Yeah, indeed. Facilities, Brendan.
Yes. Just a quick recap of Friday's Facilities Committee meeting. We met with George Duthie, our architect, to discuss the upcoming renovations for Kaler Field. We have to redo the turf and the track, as we've been talking about for the last couple of years. We've exceeded the usable life of the field and gotten a couple extra years out of it, so we can't complain too much. But it'll mean disruption for not this coming summer, but summer 2018. The track and the field will be out of commission for 3 to 4 months. Working with Sandy and the athletics to schedule track meets versus football games versus soccer practices and everything else. It's going to be a balancing act, and I don't think we're going to be able to make everybody happy, but we're going to try our best. Graduation will have to get moved back to the high school for that summer. We're going to work with the town to coordinate so that they're not also doing work on fields the same seasons, try and minimize the impact of the town as a whole. We opened bids for the auditorium renovations. Well, Dana's office opened them earlier last week. And if you want to give us just a quick recap of where we stand with that.
Well, we opened bids, we got quite a selection of bids. We had about 19 general contractors that submitted. We're in the process now of analyzing those bids, and we'll have a recommendation to the board of whether we're gonna move forward or rebid by the end of this month or sometime in early March.
We also got an update on our solar project. The work is in progress. It's a little behind schedule, but the infrastructure work is happening. The permits and approval process is in the works, and we hope to be online hopefully by the summer at some point, tentatively. There's a lot of approvals that have to happen once the project is installed before we can actually turn it on. And that is it for our meeting, and I believe we have a presentation. Are we gonna?
Yeah,
Push
so
that
on
forward.
the agenda tonight is the Westfield Soccer Association proposal, which was made initially to the Facilities Committee. And now Peter Franks from the Westfield Soccer Association is here to make his presentation to the full board. I believe Brendan and I'll refrain from making any comments. We'll let you come up and hear everybody out. If you could just start by stating your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Peter Franks. I live at 518 Clark Street in Westfield. I am the trustee of the Westfield Soccer Association. Here again to ask you, propose to you, the board, that we are allowed to use temporary lights for the months of March and April this spring, 2017, as we did and had asked in 2016, and actually did the template pilot in 2015. First off, 2015 is when I met most of you, first time ever, and tonight, Mr. Balin, Mr. Garrison, Ms. Root. You don't know me? You will.
I know.
So I want to be as quick and brief and less taxing on you all as possible. A comment that was made just earlier with Dr. Nelson up here. The Soccer Association is also invested in the town. We're invested in our children. We're invested in your students, which are our players. I'll give you a little bit of background on the club, why we're here, why we ask. There are 6,320 students in the Westfield Public Schools right now. There are 2,655 registrants in the Westfield Soccer. That's about 42%. If you look at all of our activities throughout a full course of a year, there's over 6,000 kids. Now, yes, they're doubled, but it's fall, spring, winter, summer, whatever it may be. In the springtime, those same kids play lacrosse, they do high school activities, they do this, they do that. Springtime gets very, very tight for field space. And I'm rehashing some of this really for the benefit of the 3 new board members, because I am here to propose to you. I've spoken to facilities a number of times. In the springtime, in the evening, when our older kids need to practice because they're doing high school activities, and there's about 12 teams of older kids at various levels, and commitment levels as well. There are 30 hours a week available on a lighted turf field down in Houlihan Sidfay after 6:30. Of those 30 hours, Westfield Soccer gets 3 of them, 3 hours. And we have a lot of kids. It doesn't work. We used to have 2 nights, and it was 1 night, then it's part of a night, whatever. The need is there. I enumerated that many times, and I think in the actual documentation that you have in front of you, which the second version I sent is a little bit pared down from the many versions that the facilities have seen, just to keep it simple. But up on your own website in 2015, then president of the board, Rich Matesich, had put up on the website, it's been there since then, the findings of that first trial period. So I'll go through some of that if I could. Did the 4 generators violate any legal sound limits? No. This year, the WSW used 3 generators, as the board had.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
Maybe, let's talk about the proposal for this year.
Sure.
Rather than where we've been, and I think everybody, and certainly the public.
Sure.
Could familiarize
All right.
themselves if they needed to.
So-
So let's talk about what you're proposing for this year.
What I'm going to propose, then, what I will tell you is that I'll, based upon the recommendations of the Facilities Committee to the board in September 2015, which was after seeing what we did the first time around. So I propose to do just March and April. If the sound is great and the light is great and you can let me go longer, that'd be great too, but March and April. Hopefully there's no snow cover, because last year, or 2 years ago, we started on March 24th. We had to wait well into the season. Regardless, daylight savings time is about the second week of March, so that the first couple weeks really benefits Sandy and the high school activities, because it's dark at 5 o'clock, 5:30, 5:15. They go until 7 with lights, and 7:15, whatever it may be, and then we come in after them. Last time around, 4 generators, 4 corners. This time around, 3 generators, less noise, brought closer actually onto the field with cowling around each light head, which we did not have in the first time around, to direct the light down and away from shining out and onto the sides. So reduce spillage. I demonstrated that in 2016, February. Many of you saw it, some of the neighbors saw it and commented on it to the positive effect too. I'll leave it at that. So 3 generators, 3 light heads on the field facing down. The same mesh up on the fences if it's needed. I have it, it's in my shed. As I said, the cowling around the lights will do a lot to mitigate that already, but the mesh can look good too, so that's fine. March and April, not March to the end of May. So I cut it down to your recommendation of the 2 months, because in May, it gets warmer out. People have their windows open. They may hear or see more than they did in March and April. The same protocols we had for safety, parking, crossing the street, no whistles, no games, things of that nature. There are other uses there, which, you're aware of. YMCA flyers are there. Children's Specialized Hospitals there. They'll probably benefit by having light around them as well. They're on the track. We're on the field. There are no games going on, so balls aren't flying crazily. That's what I can speak to is the differences. We're going to come down to 3 generators with shielding and mesh around the stadium. And 2 months instead of 3.
And hours of use. Just
Right
remind me.
after high school use, which is typically around 7:15, 7 o'clock, 7:30, depending on what game Sandy has, until 9:30. Lights out at 9:33. Practice is done at 9:30. Takes me 3 minutes to walk around and turn them. It might take me 2.5 minutes this time. There's only 3 of them. I will be there every night. We will have a phone number and an email address for people to complain to. We will be there and mitigate all the problems as best we can as we did the first time. It's really that simple. As hard as it may be for some, it's that simple. It's going to be like September, or rather like 2015, with the exception that the lights will be better shielded, and it will be 2 months instead of 3, and there'll be 3 units, not 4. Again, I go back to the units and to the light and to the legalities and whatnot. As I said, on the presentation that's on your Board of Ed website, it'll say that there were no illegalities, sorry.
It's okay.
And the lights don't come on until 7, is what you said? Or do they
Well,
come
if Sandy's using them at 5:30 or 6, depending, I mean, once daylight saving times kicks in, they'll come on later and later because it's more and more light. First couple weeks in March, if it's not snow covered, they'll be on when Sandy needs them at 5:37, 5:40. They'll be off every night at 9:30. I proposed 3 nights. We had the opportunity in 2015 to have 5 nights, not with us per se, because other people use the field if they wanted to use them. It was just the 3 nights. So 7.5 hours a week until 9:30.
Peter,
Any
you
other
said
questions?
you'd be there every night. I think in 2015, you had multiple representatives from the WSA.
We'll have
there.
other people there too.
That's still the plan, right?
Right, yep, absolutely. There'll be 3 teams there. Each team has a coach and a parent manager.
Mhm.
We'll make sure that those parent managers are part of our board.
Yeah. I guess the concern is if you're off doing something or attending to something, there's somebody else there that's.
There'll always be
opposed to
somebody
it.
there from the board if I'm not there.
Right.
I mean, I had to take my anniversary off in 2015. But, I've really got nothing else to do.
From your board, not our, just to clarify.
From our board,
Right.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. You guys were there a little, in the first few weeks in 2015, I appreciate that. I know Chris and I had walked around quite a bit to the neighbors, as did Brendan and I, to answer to, try to fix, try to do what we did. Again, the summer of 2015, we met with neighbors, Mr. Matesich did, and I say we met, he called them in, and I was there also. And that was the September of 2015 document that's on your website, the culmination of everything that went through with that, so.
Does anyone else from the board have any questions for Peter before we take questions from other people or comments from other people in the audience?
No, I feel fairly well versed on the issue. I was in the public portion of the meeting when you made the original proposal in
Mhm.
2015, so, in the cafeteria at the high school,
Mhm.
where we had all the coaches come up, so.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I've kind of,
Yeah,
tangentially been.
Not much has changed.
Involved.
One of the fields that we were able to use last year, later at night, is not available to us this year, so that's more of a drain on our resources. Chris can tell you the town is working hard to come up with another solution for us. It won't be 2017, maybe 2018, if they're allowed to work at the same time you're doing your field. We gotta talk about that. But yeah, I mean, we continue to look for other alternatives that are less intrusive. There are some different lighting mechanisms that might be better, but they're not available to us, and Brendan gives me a lot of fact-checking on that. It's a new word I learned this year during the debates.
So Peter, I have a question for you. So last year, you'll remember that we actually never moved forward, that you had a proposal and you brought it to the board, and then we suspended a vote on that. And then by the time we were ready to take action, it was pretty much a moot point.
Right.
What happened what did you guys do? Where were your students? Where were they? Your athletes? Where were they?
So
Were they
we,
practicing? What did that look like?
right, so we overloaded the turf field availability that we had, and we put 3 and 4 teams on a field. We use fields that we try not to use, some of the Board of Ed fields, like Washington School, not the park, parts of the park over in Garwood, help me out here.
Unami?
Thank you. Parts of UNAMI. We overloaded everything. And for the most end, we also put, when we had the Summit Field available, we had 3 teams stay out there until 10:15 or 10:20 at night, which is part of why we want them to come back home. Come back to us, and I say come back to us, be around here until 9:30. 9:30 is late enough, although all of our training, if we had Sudfay available to us, would be until 9:32. But when you're ending at 10:30 and you're 25 minutes away, it's a little bit of a different story. So some of the older teams had to make do with practicing earlier in the afternoon, and at that point, not everybody could make it. We understand that in the springtime, they've got multiple things to do. They're not going to lose their spot on a team. They may not make practices, though, particularly when they're at 5 o'clock, when they're doing high school stuff or whatever it may be, or other sports for that matter. A lot of our players are crossovers. Particularly in the spring, we don't have our youngest kids playing because they're enjoying learning how to play baseball or lacrosse or whatever it may be that's out there. Kids are supposed to try a lot of different things. The travel part and all that doesn't start until 3rd grade. So the numbers get a little bit smaller there, but it's still 2,500 kids.
Peter, of the 2,500 kids, are there some that are not Westfield residents?
I would say half of 1%. There's like 25 kids in the entire program, or 20 kids in the entire program that aren't from Westfield. Some are kids that go to the high school, children of teachers and whatnot. I don't know if that's ended or not, but there's some of that. I was happy to hear that 2 of the soccer players are going to, Lucas, I used to tutor. That's why he's going to MIT. And Lizzie, they both played here. Lizzie left, I think, a year and a half ago to play at PDA, which we totally support. A kid's going to reach a certain level, you go to the next level that's available. And there's certainly that. So we were happy to hear that. 2 of those kids are off to play. There'll probably be more before the year's out. But we try to give something to everybody from 23 years old on down. So the kids that go off to college, when they come back, there's a summer team for them. That's summertime. It's not the springtime. They're not a burden on the field. But yeah, so of that 2,500, it's less than 1%. And we also allow some kids from towns that do not have a program at all to come into town to be a soccer player.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, great. Don't go anywhere.
I won't.
I'm sure there'll be questions.
Yep.
Does anybody else want to speak to this issue? If you could just state your name and address, thank you.
Yeah, Greg Lundberg, 528 Grove Street in Westfield. Just to sort of, I guess, summarize the neighborhood's view, we really do find the program quite intrusive. We went through, quite a long dissertation 2 years ago. I won't go through that again. As to the legality of the program and some of the aspects of it, I mean, we have a neighborhood preservation association. There's 24 households that comprise the association. We did last year hire an attorney to review the situation. He did issue a letter to the board, which was about a year ago. We've never gotten a formal response to it. However, the things that we did cite in that, among others, but the three that sort of are top of the list are the height of the lights is in excess of 15 feet, the use of the lights beyond 8 o'clock, and then as far as the field itself is concerned, an inadequate buffers and barriers around the perimeter of the property. Those are the three things that we feel are in violation here. Our attorney supports that. And it is really the sort of the cornerstone of the objections now that we have from a legal basis, forgetting about the fact that it is just a very intrusive situation for the neighborhood. I had a separate conversation with Brendan a few months ago. I had requested time with the facilities committee, and we ultimately decided to just take it offline. In addition to the lighting program, there's been some question about the underutilization of the field at Keller. I can promise you that it's far from underutilized, and I have a garbage pail of athletic equipment that I've collected from my backyard as proof of that. It's also related to the lack of adequate buffer along the perimeter. I happen to back up on the grassy side of the field and have a constant stream of balls of all sorts coming into the property over the 8-foot chain link fence. And in addition to that, there were 2 safety issues that occurred this year, 2016. One was a discus during a track meet came into my backyard. And then over the summer, when the Y has a program there in the summertime, a javelin came into my backyard. So that's sort of my proof positive in terms of the lack of an adequate buffer along at least the Grove Street side of the field. So I'd like the board to at least take these things into consideration as they look at the program this time around.
Thanks. We've heard about that discus and the javelin before, and it was my recollection that it had been addressed, so that safety issue.
We're moving the discus circle to behind Edison School,
Okay.
or the Edison side of Rowe. I'm not sure exactly where on the property.
And
but
does that take care of the javelin issue too, I assume, or?
The high school javelin already takes place
Yep.
on the Edison side of Rowe Ave.
Okay.
And I wasn't aware that the Y even had a javelin program, but I imagine.
Yeah, like,
we-
right, and
just a programmatic change on their end to make sure they do it in the same location. with high
right,
school
it
practices.
prompts us to follow up and make sure that happens. Okay, great. I'm sorry. Yeah, great.
Can I ask just a quick question? How long has the field been in existence there?
1940 something.
Stadium was built, I think,
stadium
in
was a Public
26.
Works administration project.
So it's
Greg
In the-
may
well
during the
established.
Depression. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Greg Casco, 434 Everson Place. I believe the field was developed sometime in 1926 or maybe 1916. It was originally a baseball field, and it turned into Keller Stadium after that. To answer the questions about the facilities at Keller Stadium, as president of the Friends of Westfield Track, we are partnering with the Boosters Association to have the discus ring put behind Edison for safety precautions, and also we're redoing the shot put ring, which is towards the Westfield Avenue side of the facility. The javelin is currently behind Edison for every high school meet that takes place. So any javelins that might have landed in the backyard quite possibly could have been from one of the Westfield Flyers track meets, which I'm sure they could be directed to participate or take that event behind Edison Junior High School. A couple things I just want to highlight first before I get into what I was going to read so I don't miss anything. I just want to let this board know, based on my experience from this pilot program in 2015, the lights at the high school athletic field do not benefit Westfield High School sports. I spoke to 2 of the 4 coaches that use that facility during the spring. And they don't want to be out there at night. They want to be home with their families. They don't want to be out there at night running their track practices. As far as the lacrosse coaches, I did not speak to them, but I do know that the velocity of a lacrosse ball under that lighting is dangerous. So I don't know what the lacrosse team is going to use those lights for. We heard from Sandy Mamery in 2015. She's not here tonight. Either she wasn't asked to be here or for whatever reason, she's not. But I don't know what she would say to support Mr. Franks's mention that this would benefit the Westfield High School sports teams. The high school sports practices have taken place at Kaler Stadium for decades without lights. They don't need them now. This is solely for the Westfield Soccer Association. It was reported in the Patch, I think, earlier this week, or maybe this morning. I have the article here. The Facilities Committee or the Recreation Department, they met, and the project that they're planning for Tamaulipas for 2018 are 2 multi-purpose fields with lights on the lower soccer field. Mr. Eshaw had said that they're going to be knocking down the bathrooms there, putting up a 2-story facility. They're going to be doing a major improvement down at that park. And their target date for the renovation is 2018. The Finance Committee has already agreed to move forward with the project. So they should be coming to your rescue pretty soon, Mr. Franks. The eyesore, the mesh that was put up 2 years ago, quite frankly, it's an eyesore. And it remained up longer than the actual usage of the field. I'm not going to get into all the other stuff that we went over in 2015, 2016. What I'd like to do is I'd like to bring up the fact that the portable lights, the ones that the Westfield Soccer Association used in 2015, which I assume they're going to be using this year, they're for emergency construction and road repairs. It's temporary lighting of walkways and park facilities, like the ones that maybe some of you saw at Oak Ridge Park when they had their concert series in the summertime. They're used for carnivals and street fairs. They're not meant for a residential neighborhood for prolonged use. When the Westfield Soccer Association used portable lights in 2015, the Board of Education had to be indemnified or attain an indemnity from the WSA when a complaint was made through the Municipal Court of Westfield by me. The case was moved to Mountainside due to a conflict of interest, and the judge in Mountainside ruled entirely on the matter of noise, which we now know is an area granted by the state. It's protected, and I will agree to that. However, he did not rule on the height of the lights, and he did not rule on the spillage of the lights, nor did Mr. Franks mention those 2 issues tonight. The bigger problem, however, is the constant position taken by the WSA that it's a charitable organization doing selfless work. In fact, it's a money-making organization at a rate nobody can really see. I want to point out the usage fees that are paid to the town of Westfield by the WSA. These fees are paid by each member of the WSA, of which I think there were 2,600 as last stated on their website. It's no longer at the bottom of their website. It's been removed, but last year it said $15 per member. The town ordinance requires $10 per member. So if you do the math, you're talking a $26,000 check is turned over to the town of Westfield. There's another $13,000 that went into the coffers of the WSA. Currently, the WSA lists 14 fields in Westfield and 7 additional fields in neighboring towns that they use for their sport. 5 of the fields are owned by the town of Westfield. And like I said before, by Town Ordinance 1628A, they're required to pay a fee per athlete. 11 of the 21 fields listed on their website are owned by the Westfield Board of Education. The Westfield Soccer Association pays the Board of Education nothing to use those fields. This year, Westfield elementary, middle, and high school students that participate in a sport, band, or drama production all city band, chorus, orchestra, or club are required to pay a student activity fee. There is a Tier 1 designated fee of $125 for drama, musical, and sports for 8th grade and up. There's a Tier 2 fee of $60, and that's basically for elementary level and some 6th and 7th grade programs. That money is used to offset costs associated with these extracurricular activities. Correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, approximately 7% of the Board of Education's operating budget was used for maintenance and custodial staffing, which includes maintaining Board of Education fields. The Westfield Soccer Association, may I remind you again, does not pay you anything to use your fields. The free use of the Board of Education's assets, your fields, by the Westfield Soccer Association, or any other private group for that matter, has to stop. Kaler Stadium's artificial turf and track are in need of replacement, as you have all heard here tonight. Our elementary, middle, and high school playing fields need constant maintenance, for which Westfield taxpayers are footing the bill through our property taxes. I'm asking this Board of Education to please vote no on the usage of temporary lights. I've grown up in town. I've lived here since 1972. I've lived in my house on Everson Place since 1994. It's a great neighborhood. I have a front porch that I sit on, and I can hear the generators, albeit it's legal to run them. I can see the lights. I can smell the fumes. There are quality of life issues that are involved here. And it's not just me, just because myself and some other neighbors came out. It's not just us, it's all of our neighbors. I am not affiliated with the group that Greg is affiliated with. I'm here on my own. I don't represent any of my neighbors. I represent myself. I'm asking you to please vote this down. I think next year, the WSA will be in a better position to go to the town and get usage of their fields in Tamaulipas. They were able to do without it last year. I think they can do without it this year. Thank you.
If you could please state your name and address.
Certainly. I'm Susan Bottorff. I live at 514 Grove Street. I have spoken before, I've been here before. I haven't been to a meeting in a long time. But first of all, actually, I want to tell you thank you very much. Well, I shouldn't say thank you, but that's really not right. I want to say I'm very pleased that you have appointed Dr. Nelson to be the principal. I was watching that in the paper and hoping that that would be the outcome. And I'm glad that I was here tonight for that. So I think that's a very nice step that you've taken to do that. I wanted to say just a couple things. I live very near Greg, Lemberg. So I'm also disturbed by the noise and the lights and all of that. And it aggravated me a lot a couple of years ago. But I think it still does. If it happens again, it's going to aggravate me. But the things that I'm more concerned about is this a step in the direction of permanent lighting of that field? And no one can guarantee that that is not the case. Everything that you do that's different and gives a little bit more can be built on if the neighbors, I think, don't let you know how they feel. It is disruptive. Another thing that has bothered me a lot in this whole process is the consideration given to the neighborhood. There's lip service given to that. And apparently some people have talked to members of the board. But I listened today again to the candidates night so that Mr. Galligan and Ms. Root and Mr. Beelan all addressed the Kaler lights. It was one of the questions. And everyone, tried to address both the concerns of the neighborhood and the hopes for the sports portion of the school and kids' education. I'm all for sports. I don't mind living by the field. I like the noise of kids there. But I'm concerned about the consideration that has been given to the neighborhood because frankly, I don't feel that it has been. The letter that our association presented to the board was not responded to. It was kind of fluffed off as, oh, that's a part of that previous thing that went nowhere in the court. That doesn't seem very considerate to me. And there was some consideration given in the fall because a letter came or was distributed to our house by, well, it has Sandy Mamry's name on it. That was nice, you know? I received that and I thought, oh, okay, they're thinking about us a little bit. Because I really don't think that you have been thinking about the neighbors all that much. We're taxpayers too. You represent us. We voted or didn't vote for some, well, obviously some of us must have voted for you. You're here, sitting here tonight. So think of us, you know, when you make your decision. Thanks.
I just would want to respond. I mean, from my perspective, significant consideration has been given to the neighbors. When we went through this process in 2015, there were multiple meetings afterwards to try and assess the success of the pilot program. And we've had many public meetings where everyone's views were heard and welcomed. A lot of the changes that you heard that the Westfield Soccer Association incorporated into their proposal were the result of parameters that were set by this board as a result of meetings with the neighbors. And you're right, there was never a formal response to your letter. You know, things don't always move as quickly as we'd like to when we are seeking legal advice from our own attorney, and then he in turn is having to, you know, contact the board or the town. And by the time we got the response that we wanted, it was a moot point. And so it didn't make sense to us to expend fees to have our attorney respond. If we need to, then at some point, I guess we'll approach that when we get there. But so I don't think that we have moved without consideration to the neighbors, but I hear you. And I certainly have continued to hear what I think are really legitimate concerns about some of the barriers around Kaler and the consideration of that. So, does anyone else from the public want to say anything? Are there board members who want, I mean, let's have a conversation about the proposal. Does anyone want to say, ask questions or follow-up thoughts,
I got one
comments?
question. How many nights a week were we talking about here?
Three.
So 3 nights, okay.
3 nights, 2.5 hours a night, I believe, is the goal.
3 nights.
No
2.5,
lacrosse.
all right,
This
and
is
no
a-
lacrosse, right?
This is a proposal from the Soccer Association.
Right,
Correct.
okay. And we're talking about just March and April. And if they can't use it starting March 1st because of weather, we still end at the end of April?
Correct.
And
Okay.
probably have spring break off. I'm not sure what date it is, but we didn't use spring break, so there's another week there that blanks would be off.
It's like the week of April 11th, I think it is.
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
Sounds right.
Okay, I got mine. I'm good.
I think, Greg, too, I just don't want to, because I don't want to lose sight, I was taking notes, that I think that, you know, you raise, and we've said this before, a very valid point about our facilities and how they're used and the fees that are charged for that usage. And we're not close to having a public conversation about that, but there is a lot going on in our committees to take a look at that. So I think it's valid. I think it's separate. I understand the connection to tonight's proposal, but I also think that it's a separate issue that, you know, I appreciate that you bring it up. You brought it to our attention years ago, so. Brendan, do you wanna tell the board about the facilities, the conversation within the facilities committee and where we sort of landed in bringing this to the full board?
Do I need to make the motion first, or can we have that conversation?
Yeah, why don't you make a motion and then we can, good idea.
Facilities Committee recommends that the board approve facilities agenda item number 1. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so we don't need to rehash all of the history. I wrote down a lot of remarks about the history and back and forth. I think we're all pretty well versed in that. Over the summer of 2015 and then in the fall of 2015, when Richmond Tessick was still board president and facilities chairman, he met with various groups of neighbors and the board, and the soccer association, and came up with parameters around what the board would require if they were to ever consider temporary lights again. Since that time, Peter Franks and the Westfield Soccer Association has met every single one of those requirements, actually exceeded almost all of them. And that's really where the facilities committee was broken down. We want to recognize that the Soccer Association has done everything we've asked of them, and we want to balance that with the concerns of the neighborhood. We delayed this presentation how many meetings? Because we couldn't come to a conclusion. But ultimately, just speaking for myself, the board, by way of the facilities committee at the time, made an agreement with the Soccer Association. And to me, the integrity of the board rests on its ability and willingness to follow through with commitments that had been made. So that's how I got to the point where I want to recommend that we proceed.
When you say we made an agreement with the Soccer Association, you mean that we set parameters on
Correct.
which
Yeah,
we
there's no
consider-
there's no agreement. That's
Right,
my
let's
own
be
language.
clear
It's my
about
own
that.
notes.
Okay.
But it was, we asked them to do things to improve upon the program, even though it was refined every step along the way during the pilot. We came up with parameters for a further improvement upon that pilot, and they met those. And while I'm personally against lights at Kaler, because the neighborhood has very, very legitimate concerns, and we can't satisfy all of them, I recommend that we follow through with allowing the improved upon pilot to proceed.
Okay. I'm just gonna make a motion to amend your motion, because we don't have a facilities one on the agenda. So I would just amend your motion that the facilities committee recommend that we adopt the Soccer Association proposal for the use of temporary lights at Kaler Field as set forth in the written proposal we've received. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Chris,
The
will you
parliamentary
second
procedure.
that?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Stands.
I want to hear what everybody else is thinking. I just want to say that I agree that the Soccer Association proposal as presented not only satisfied the guidelines previously articulated by this board, but also sufficiently minimizes intrusion to the neighbors. I just want to take a moment to set forth my expectations about how the program will be administered this year if the board is to adopt it. Unlike 2 years ago, I do not believe it is appropriate for the board or district employees to be on site during the use of the temporary lights. Nor do I believe that any adjustments to the proposed placement should be made during the program. Of course, concerns expressed about the lights being used in a way other than what has been articulated tonight and is specifically set forth. In other words, I mean, if placement is not as presented to us, if the cowling is not there, if something is not in keeping with what we've discussed tonight, of course those concerns will be immediately addressed. However, the day-to-day efforts previously made, in my view, it's not appropriate that we do that again. It taxes our staff, it taxes our employees. I think it minimizes intrusion to the degree that we're able to do it if we have lights. And so I just wanted to set forth the board's expectation and myself as the president that that's what would be happening this year if the proposal's adopted. So.
Yeah, just to echo, the redesign and the placement of the lights has been modeled and demonstrated to us the effectiveness of the shielding and the cowling. With the height limitations set by town ordinance, this is the best possible solution, or the best possible control of light spillage that could possibly occur. If we were able to go taller, the lights would be further directed down, but we're restricted both by ordinance and by the mechanical limitations of portable lights.
Do you wanna say something, Charles?
No, again, the concerns of the public, I've heard what you're saying, and ultimately it is a difficult decision. It's not an easy decision. It's something that, as Gretchen said, that we struggled with for an extended period of time. Different people came out on different sides of the conversation. And by no means am I dismissing anything that anybody's saying. It is ultimately, what parameters that were laid out, the Westfield Soccer Association has met. They're going to move forward and do that. Again, as far as your concerns, as far as things that are being taken care of, not being taken care of, I would add with the fact that as it relates to the meshing, the timing, that all these things be taken care of, that they be done in an orderly fashion and be done, with respect to the community. I have, some personal views, my personal views, that again, with 2,800 or 2,600 youth that participate in the soccer association, and the fact that they are using board fields, I don't believe that education, that community stops or is encompassed in four walls or the bricks of a building. That it's a greater as far as the learning and the development of our youth. And that's really where I come out on this. And, I'm open to have a conversation, and by no means, if there is an issue, if there's something wrong, and I know you people are gonna do it, please email me. I will make the effort as much as I can with my schedule to be out on those fields and be there and be visible.
You just said you don't want that.
Yeah.
But I can as a parent.
I think he's
go on his
stating
own.
As a personal.
personal,
Outside of
as
the
a member
board,
of the
as a-
Westfield Soccer
Yes.
Association, but right, I think I just wanted to be clear that the efforts that were made 2 years ago when we were conducting the pilot program in terms of board members being physically present and constant readjustment to mesh and lights and placement, is not, I just want the neighbors to know what our expectation is going into it.
But my point is that if there's parameters and timing set that the mesh goes up at X time and comes down at some time, that it's gonna be as far as
Right.
enforcement. And as far as my position, as I said, I am a parent within the community, and as a parent in the community who happens to also sit on the board, that I will be visible. I cannot speak on behalf of the board, but I can, I can take in what people are saying to me and then present it. But again, outside of quote-unquote official capacity, I still do sit on it.
Gretchen, I would just say that I think when we went out there, I understand the concerns of the neighbors, I get it. I think when we went out there 2 years ago, I think all 5 members of us here who were on the board then actually went out to the site. And that was really to see what was going on and try to make sure the concerns were addressed. And I think that was all embodied in that report that Rich Matesic did. So assuming that the WSA is meeting the parameters of our guidelines, as we said about 3 times now, those concerns should be addressed. And I find it hard not to vote for something after we've set out guidelines saying that if you meet this, you will have the right to do whatever it is that we've set out. And then if someone meets it, we say no. Having said that, I still think the parameters we've set out should hopefully make the situation better this year than it was 2 years ago.
So is the additional mesh going to reduce the overall light spillage? Do we know by how much?
So the rationale behind the mesh when it was installed is along the Everson Street side of the field, there's no bushes, there's no hedges. You get a nice reflection off the bottom of the bleachers, depending on the way the lights were angled, and they were spilling directly into people's houses. Or there were Everson and Birchwood, thank you. The stop signs there, there was glare. So the idea was to try and reduce some glare.
Because I know I've seen some pictures with glare, and I'm just wondering how much is that glare now reduced?
The positioning of the lights, per Mr. Frank's proposal, would be very different than they were last time, where you had lights at the opposite corners spilling in. Now there's gonna be one, one on the field house side, pointing almost straight down, with 2 coming back towards
Well,
the
and
bleachers.
there's additional cowling this year, which should remediate spillage significantly as well. Anybody else?
I would just like to add one thing, and I don't know if something maybe we could talk about going forward, not just in relation to this, but in relation to neighbors' concerns about usage of Kaler in general. I think we tend to think of, you know, how do our school teams use the field? And then we're aware of how do certain sports association teams intend to use the field. And I think, so different groups that use the field think about their own individual usage, but the neighbors are subjected to all of that. Because my kids played PAL football over the years. Those kids come in on a Sunday morning, which is a whole different kettle of fish in terms of an expectation of a peaceful time. I get that. The younger the kids, the goofier they get. And it's not even funny when it's your own kid, but it's certainly not funny when it's somebody else's kid who gets in on the PA system and decides to, you know, yell or play music before the appointed time. And I think we need to encourage the groups that use the field to respect the parameters. And, you know, so we need to find a way to do that, is what I'm saying. I think the Westfield Soccer Association is sincere in, you know, wanting to be good neighbors and good utilizers of the field. And I would hope that we could encourage all the groups that use the fields to do that too.
And that, right, and I think those efforts are made and they have to continue to be made. Because
Absolutely.
then there's sometimes new leadership or what, and so there always needs to be a refresher. It's a work in progress at all times.
Right, what seems like, oh, it's just one incident is maybe, you know, the 13th incident that the neighbors have, you know, have experienced in their time in their homes there. So it adds up when you can't go home because you are home. Yeah, I get that.
All right, Dana, I think we're ready for a vote, please.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Thank you. Brendan, nothing else for facilities this
Nope.
evening? Long-range planning, Mark.
So we're gonna schedule a time, I think Dr. Dolan and Dana met with the demographer, and one that you guys liked, and we'll have a meeting, and then we can make a decision on next steps. We just have to get something on the calendar,
Very good.
right? That's it.
Great. Policies, Chris.
Yeah, we have 3 items on the agenda. I'd like to, for the board to consider for approval, the second reading of policy number 3240, professional development for teachers and school leaders relating to teaching staff members. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Dana?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Item number 2, I'd like the board to consider for approval the second reading to abolish the following policy, 3244, in-service training, teaching staff members. Just as a note, that's all covered in the policy we just approved, 3240. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Dana?
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Robert Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
And finally, I'd like the board to affirm the superintendent's decision on HIB incidents 17HSO4, 17E07, and 17E08 for the reasons set forth in each of those reports. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions?
Mike
Dana.
Beelan,
Thanks.
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Just one note, the Policies Committee will meet on February 21st. I think, Dr. Dolan, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to discuss the calendar then, which we've had plenty of feedback on, and we'll probably
Yes, that's definitely one of the
take that
topics.
up again, yes. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Curriculum, instruction, and programming, I'd like to ask the board to consider and approve items 1 and 2 on the agenda. Can I have a second, please?
Item 1 is revised and at everybody's place. There's a change in, dollar amount for one of, oh, I'm sorry,
Oh.
it's not a field trip, I'm sorry.
I think that's a finance
It is,
item,
it's-
right?
it's-
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So without, right, so 1 and 2 as set forth on the agenda. Can I have a second? Michael, thank you. The district field trips are an attachment to the agenda, and then also it's second reading of the curriculum that we talked about at our last meeting. Does anybody have any questions? Dana?
Mike Beelen,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Amy Ru.
Yes.
Nothing further for curriculum this evening. Finance.
I'd like the board to consider finance items 1 through 7, and 7 was amended at your desk. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No? Dana?
Mike Beelen,
Yes.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Amy Ru.
Yes.
Okay, and then we did postpone our meeting, the schedule for Friday. The next one after, unless we have something pressing that comes up, especially as it relates to aid, which will happen, we'll get information at the end of February sometime. Next scheduled meeting is March 3rd.
When is our first budget hearing, public budget?
Well, it's the 28th. We're supposed to get state aid information on the 28th, so depending on.
So you'll be going home for dinner then?
Depending on.
No, we have a
The-
10-year review report.
It may be changing at the last minute, but, you know, we have a draft of the budget together, assuming state aid stays the same as it is in the 16-17 school year. So
Okay.
that'll have to get adjusted depending on what information we get.
Okay, great.
Nothing else for me.
Technology. Peggy.
I don't have a report. We've been on a little hiatus. We did have a meeting in December, and our meeting in January was canceled due to a technology conference conflict. And we are scheduled to meet on February 24th, which is after our next board meeting, so in March, I hopefully will have a report for you.
I think it's the
before.
28th,
Next
right?
board meeting is the
Okay, so
28th.
before.
That's why I paused, I thought maybe, but.
But the
can't
next meeting
depend
is
on my
February
memory.
24th, yes.
That's why I put Dr.
I'd like to ask the board to note the notes for the record. Do we have any unfinished business to discuss tonight? Any new business to bring before the board? Liaison reports.
I met with the Garden State Education Coalition a couple of weeks back. The bulk of the meeting, which takes place in East Brunswick, was really centered on the different potential funding mechanisms and outcomes, the differences between what the Assembly potentially is proposing, the Senate President Sweeney through his group that he's putting together, also the governor's office. We also had a presentation by Tom Byrne, who is chair of the pension fund for New Jersey. And in all candor, I used to work for Tom, so I thought he did a great job in his presentation. But it was very interesting the way Tom went through the information and presented the board different scenarios and what his body had sent over to the governor's office in terms of trying to rectify and look at potential solutions, long-term, short-term, down the road. It was a very lively discussion because there are a mix of folks that sit on the coalition or are part of the coalition between teachers, educators, administrators, and board members. So it was a very good first meeting to attend.
Great, thank you. Any other liaison reports?
I do. I attended Tamaqua School PTSO meeting. This is their second. They hold two. One was in October and one was last week. Both meetings were centered around education for parents. And the meeting on, I'm sorry if it was Tuesday or Thursday, was about time management and how different ways parents can manage their kids' schedules, understanding that we all live very busy lives and have very busy schedules. It was extremely well attended, very active discussions, a lot of parents asking a lot of questions. So I think it stands to one of our goals, which is more to parent outreach and so forth, and bringing in people that are here to help parents through some of their issues and teaching skills to parents and communicating with parents. And I was happy to say there were a lot of parents there taking in the information we were providing. And the presenter was a woman, and I apologize, I don't remember her name, from Youth and Family Services, who really gave them some good ideas with young students as to how to structure after school. And people bantered back and forth. Well, maybe this doesn't work for me, and and people fed off of that. So I thought it was a great discussion, and it really supported one of our goals for this year, which is the parent outreach programs.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports? Is there anyone from the public who has any questions or comments? Greg?
You can come up.
Yes, please, and state your name
I'll be brief. Greg Casco, 434 Everson Place. For the record, I just wanted to ask the board, and I probably already know the answer, but has the Westfield Soccer Association provided an engineer's report regarding the light spillage or glare? If not, why not? The Soccer Association's placement of the portable lights hardly constitutes a professional recommendation that will abide by town code ordinance. And secondly, Brendan Galligan had mentioned that the WSA will abide by the height restrictions. What height is that, and are you referring to the Westfield Town Code ordinance of 15 feet?
I'll answer the first question. No, there's no engineer's report.
Okay.
As to,
Brendan, I don't know if you even remember what you said.
I was speaking more to doing the best they could with low height lighting.
We believe that the proposal is in keeping with our legal obligations.
In the proposal, does it state a height?
Peter, can you help me?
I can. The higher they
Would
are,
you?
the higher they are, the better the light would not disperse. That being said, the tower itself has an elevation of 30 feet max. I'm looking at 20. If I have the lights lower than that, I'll have to tilt them up and out to length field, therefore making more necessary than the. I still think even at that height, probably still works. It's going to work better and be safer, and better quality of light and less intrusion on the neighborhood if they're 20, 22 feet.
And just, can you remind me how that compares to 2015?
2015, they were anywhere on any given day, because I'm doing it by eyesight, around 17, 18 feet, trying to keep them below, facing out over the bleachers. You know, I didn't have the counting at that point, that's why the mesh went up. The mesh went up to stop some glare that was in one person's driveway, which that settled that.
Okay.
I understand, and I'm thankful for Peter's concern for the neighborhood, but in 2015, I measured them. They were 25 feet. And town code states 15 feet. What he's proposing now is, I think he said 22 feet, which is 7 feet above town code. And I get it. The higher, the better, but we're dealing with a town code here. And I just want to get it on the record. And like I said, I had asked Brendan, because I had heard Brendan say that he's going to abide by the height restrictions. I didn't know if the restrictions were set forth. They weren't. His proposal is 22 feet. I'll move forward with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Hi, can you state your name?
I'm Dan Botorff. I live at 514 Grove Street. This is about the Keller Stadium. I wanted to thank you for your consideration of the neighborhood's concerns, and that you've taken that seriously, and clearly you've talked about it a great deal. I also want to say, Mrs. Root, I really appreciate your words about the accumulation of activity and the problematic things that come along with a lot of activity. I also want to say that when we bought our property, the stadium was there. We knew that there was going to be lots of activity. We live on Grove Street, which is right there by Edison. And so we buy the property knowing that there's going to be this kind of traffic in the morning for school and so forth. And there's going to be activities behind our house in the stadium, much of which is enjoyable. You know, it's kids' sounds, it's life, it's vitality, it's wonderful. There are some occasions when there was a lacrosse game where one of the coaches from another town was swearing at his players with such vile language that I talked with the administration to do something about that. I didn't want to hear that language in my backyard, and certainly not to the kids that were in the stadium as well. I mean, it was everywhere. That's one thing. So I appreciate your words, but we're talking about nighttime We're talking about how would you like lights in your backyard for hours, even if it's only 2 months a year? I mean, and if we don't say something about it now, you'll say, well, the higher the lights, the better. Permanent lights at great height would be wonderful. It could be focused down. And then you change the nature of our neighborhood. We become a stadium neighborhood instead of a neighborhood. And so we're raising our voices now. There's only 3 of us here, or 4 of us here tonight. But the association is representing 24 families, and there's many more families who, if you suggested that we had permanent lights, they would be here in mass. And you would have your hands full with changing the nature of our neighborhood. So, you know, you've done what you've done, but hear us. You better be careful, because this will be a real problem if it is extended. It's a problem now to us, and we'll put up with it. But hear us, really hear us. We're representing others as well.
Okay, one last time. Greg Lemberg, 528 Grove Street. Just to echo what Dan said, I mean, it is, I do appreciate the fact that I think 2 years ago people didn't get it, including board members, in terms of the usage of the field. 8 o'clock Sunday morning, Saturday morning in the fall, PA system blaring. Even with the recommendation that the facilities committee issued a year and a half ago, there are still excessive usage of the PA system for sure. I think what was actually captured in that recommendation was to not let children on the PA system. That was not actually what was discussed at that meeting. I was there, and the issue is excessive uses of the PA system, period. This is not professional football on Sundays for 9 hours a day for 2 months out of the year, Saturdays as well. As far as this lighting program is concerned, I said back in December, when Sandy had the lights on the field for, I guess it was the month of November, getting ready for the football championship. You know, that was a special circumstance for a month. This is a special circumstance for 2 months. That's 3 months now out of the year that we're up to. Then take the summertime. It's laid out till 9 o'clock anyway. So the field is in use until 9 o'clock anyway during the summertime. So this just feels like piling on. And that's why we're here. That's why we've been here for the last 2 years. And as Dan said, you've done what you've done and made the decision. But you know, it really, I think for me, is incredibly frustrating and disappointing that we're going to go through this again, and then we're going to be here a year from now, potentially, and another request, and another request, and another request. So the other thing that's new since that recommendation was made in September of 2015 is the ordinances that we feel are in violation have been raised without being addressed. So what I would request from tonight's meeting is the gory detail of this plan for this go-around in terms of number of lights, the position, how many light heads per tower, how tall are the towers going to be, how many days a week, how many hours a day, the whole plan laid out so that I can digest it and understand it better, because right now it's been a lot of words, there's nothing on a piece of paper, and I think that the neighborhood is owed those specifics about how this program is going to be executed this time.
And that's something we can do.
I think Brendan has my email address. If you don't, then let me know.
Is it, so I'm just trying to think of the best way to communicate that.
Could be a piece of paper.
No, I'm thinking, are you our point of contact?
I'm requesting it, so
Great.
yes, I would say that I'm your
And
point
you'll
of
share that with the
contact.
neighborhood.
Yes, I will.
Are you speaking, I probably missed it, are you speaking on behalf of the neighborhood?
I'm speaking on behalf of the Kaler Neighborhood Preservation Association, the 24 households that Dan and I have referenced.
So if we talk to you, you'll report back to them?
I'll cascade it
That
backwards,
was my
yes.
question. Thank you
Yeah.
for,
Can I be added to that list?
Yeah.
I'm not part of the association.
I got you.
Thank you.
And just in terms of time frame, when might I expect something like that? A day, a week, a month? A
By the
month
end of
is
the
too
week.
late.
We can do it by the end of the week.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public with any questions or comments for the board? I need you to come up to the podium and,
come up together?
if you'd like to, sure. You state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello again. I'm Lydia Kaplan. I live at 245 Clark Street.
Pamela Brook, 775 Carlton Road.
Hi.
We are the co-founders of Westfield Solidarity for Safety. We were here a couple weeks ago, and we have an idea that we'd like to present to you very briefly for the school.
Yeah, and also we had a couple of questions that weren't answered that we'd like to have some answers with. So I'll start with those. Some of the concerns were that there was nothing stated about how minority parents are engaged into the school system in as far as your long-range planning or visions or missions that you have for as a board. Or if you, I know there's long-range planning that's always done, and how are their concerns taken into consideration and how are they engaged when a large majority feel that they are not per se welcome in PTAs that are around the city, around the town, and also they don't feel comfortable in coming out into settings of which seem to be more homogenous, I should say. And the other thing is, some of them culturally are not really educated on how to actually become involved and engaged, and that it is something that you should do as being a parent. So I would like to know how the board takes and involves those type of parents in order for them to actually have a say.
I think we have a lot of people probably want to say something. So you want to talk about PTC, Amy?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, there is an umbrella organization that sort of kind of groups together all the different PTOs at all the different schools, and they have monthly meetings in this room, and they have, it tends to be a lot of moms, but dads are welcome as well. But the meetings are typically every third Thursday of the month. And there is you can get to information about it on the district website. If you go to the Parents tab, it's the Parent Teacher Council. It's practically speaking almost 100% parents, but Dr. Dolan comes, if her schedule allows, pretty much every month, and interacts with the parents that are there. There are some ladies that sit up here that are officers of that group, but there are representatives from all the schools. The public is welcome to come to the meeting, the portion of the meeting that starts at 10:15. It's a little tough for working parents, I know, but it is open to the public, and if there's ever a third Thursday of the month, you can check the schedule on the website to verify, but I know we've got meetings coming up in March and April and May, for sure. I think the June meeting is always kind of a little questionable.
It's during the day. It's in
It's
the morning.
always all during the day.
As a
That one is
Westfield
during the day.
parent, I was never a full-time, professor.
Right.
I was never able to attend coffee with the principal or.
So I know that a
Yeah.
number of
Right,
the.
but in case there are parents who are, that's
Yeah.
why I mention it. So it is one opportunity, and if you ever find yourself home on a Thursday, and you could come, it is useful to hear what's going on even at the other schools as well, not just your kids' schools.
A number of the individual school PTOs meet in the evening, and I know, I mean, the PTOs aren't under our umbrella, so, but
Oh,
that
okay.
information is all available, I know, on our district website, under the specific schools. Each PTO has a tab, and it has their general
Presidents.
meeting, agenda and their presidents, and so, just to address your first question, Dr. Dolan can probably do it much more articulately than I can, but that when we had our strategic planning meeting over, was it last spring, I guess?
Yes.
There was consideration given to hearing concerns of minorities in our community. There was a representative from the Martin Luther King Jr. Association, correct? And go ahead, I'll let you take over.
Well, it was, honestly, we were trying to be representative in so many different ways, both racially, but also different ages, making sure we hit all parts of town. I mean, every person, we tried to make sure that we were reaching a different part of the community. So I mean, it's not something, honestly, we ever forget. We really do try to work to make sure we do have representatives from all different groups. It's not just, at one level.
And that's, I think that's an effort that we make in across the board.
Right,
I
and
mean,
truth-
whenever we convene community
Right,
groups
or
together.
search groups, right,
Right.
search community groups. I mean, honestly, a reason to do it is the conversation is much richer, You hear different points of view. It's, a lot of people know that if there are 5 people sitting around a table with me and we all have the same thought, there wasn't much reason to get together probably, right? You want people who have different perspectives and are bringing it to the table. So it is truly something we really do pay attention to at different levels.
Okay.
It doesn't mean somebody doesn't feel as though they're not welcome. We got to work on that. But we really do take that into consideration when making up committees or groups or anything else like that.
Okay,
Can I
good.
just say one other thing?
Yes.
I sat on I may get some of the names wrong because they have changed over the years that I've been here. The Municipal Alliance, is that
Yes.
Louise Tadea's group?
Mhm.
Which used to be called Panda back many
Yeah.
years ago, so she changed the name, and she works very well with the neighborhood council, is that correct? I just wanna make sure I have the names right.
Yes.
And working to make sure that they come to the Municipal Alliance meetings and bring their ideas and their concerns and so forth. And one of the last meetings I was at, they had representatives there discussing some of their issues that maybe weren't the same as other people's issues. And they work with the students also at the high school. This was at the high school, making sure that their ideas are heard and put to work in their policies and so forth. So it was just another example of.
It truly is nice that our town is the size it is, because honestly, we tend to know about different groups, and even as groups change, because communities change. And so, it does, I think, we do try to work with a variety of groups throughout the course of the year.
One last plug, sorry. At our last meeting, we talked about a change in the email systems that the different PTOs were gonna be using to get information out to their constituents. And I think, one of the ways I remember in the old days that you got the newsletter from your school's PTO was that you went somewhere and signed up for it.
Right.
So if you didn't know where that link was, or you didn't realize that there was something out there that you didn't know about, you didn't know what you were missing. But the way the new system is gonna be working, if the district has your email, you're gonna get, and you go to that school, your kid goes to that school, you're gonna get that newsletter up front. And if you find that it's too much for you, then you can kind of tailor, I think, whether you receive the information or not. But that new system is coming online, so hopefully, if anybody was unaware of something before, they'll start to get a little bit more information and they can find out a little bit more that's going on.
I'm not familiar with what your ELL demographic is right now, but are they from maybe disenfranchised communities or?
So actually, our ELL population is really, it tends to change a bit every year. We don't have one pattern that stays. ELL will be English language learners, so students who began with a different language in life. And right now, it's rather divided among a variety of languages from various continents, to be honest with you. The ELL teachers are often almost a port of entry to get parents.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right, what you said before, Pam, that it may be a difference in culture, you know,
Right.
whether or not you interact much with the school. Right?
Or afraid to.
Yes.
Because we don't know what's going on, you know, and it's true, culturally, reaching out is different for.
Right.
in
So
different places.
actually, often it's and again, we do not have a huge program, but the teachers we have, they realize that's part of their
Mhm.
program. It's also why we run the summer program for those students, to give them and their families a better sense of what is our community. Learn a little bit more about the town of Westfield so that the kids are a little more comfortable and the parents can be a little more aware. It's one of the reasons why we do that.
That's great.
Okay.
And then on a final positive note.
Yeah, well, no, go ahead. in
Well,
regards to
Pam
this.
came across these 10 wonderful books regarding issues of diversity, and we have this sort of fantasy of having some kind of fundraiser to purchase these books and put them in some kind of traveling bin to go from school to school, library to library. But I don't, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know, like, if that's in your purview or how we would go about that.
I think you need to see a list of the books, probably, right?
Yeah.
And then,
Right, but it sounds like a good, it's amazing what students and teachers can learn from a variety of books. So it's certainly something worth considering and talking about.
Okay. I can email you them.
Okay.
That's very easy to do.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Can I
Okay.
point out an interesting aside? I got an email today at 5 o'clock. My daughter's in first grade from the Scholastic Club. You know, they do the Scholastic, and it's on diversity books. So today at 5:19, got an email with a whole list of diversity books that potentially you can purchase this time around, I guess you say. So the timing is perfect. I just got it
Yeah,
earlier
we're
today.
kind of psychic.
Yeah.
We've known each other since we were 12, so.
Well, that's handy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you very
So
much.
the first step would be to share the book list with you and look at Scholastic maybe.
Definitely will do.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that our view? Making all notes? Are there any other questions or comments from the public? Seeing no one come to the podium, I'd ask the board to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidents, and potential litigation. And be it further resolved that any discussions held by the board which need not remain confidential and the results of said discussions will be made public as soon as practicable. Can I have a second, please? Amy, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are in private session. Thank you very much.